word of the Lord. Jacob leaves Beersheba and goes toward Haran. He comes to a certain place and stays there for the night because the sun is setting. Taking of the stones of the place, he puts them around his head and lays down in that place. And he dreams. And behold, a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to the heavens. And behold, the messengers of God are ascending and descending on it. And behold, Yahweh stands over it and says, I am Yahweh, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I give to you and to your sowing. And your sowing is like the dust of the earth, and you spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth are blessed in you and in your sowing. Know that I am with you, and keep you wherever you go, and bring you back to this land. For I do not leave you until I do what I promise you. Then Jacob awakens from his sleep and says, surely Yahweh is in this place, and I do not know it. And he is afraid and says, how awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of the heavens. So Jacob rises early in the morning, and he takes a stone he put for his head, and sets it up for a pillar, and pours oil on the top of it. He calls that place Bethel, house of God. Word of God for the people.
Thanks be to God.
Do we really expect God to show up? If we do, where? How? When do we expect God to show up? Do we relegate God showing up to a sanctuary? In the punishing storms of nature? In a hospital room? In some place of refuge? If we find God appearing where we might least expect it, how do we respond to that encounter or experience of God? God's unexpected presence. Years back, I remember talking with a child who asked a very simple question. Where is God? How can I answer a preschooler in any way that made sense, was meaningful, and appropriate for a 3-year-old? I told them, well, God is here. God is everywhere. I got an unexpected response. Can I talk to him? I responded, well, sure. The child leaned forward, and looking around very carefully said, hello? God? It was an adorable and cute response. It also called into question my prowess at communicating good theology to a preschooler. The child was looking for a physical being of some sort. The child was attempting to encounter God in a similar way in which we encounter people, animals, or even trees. Rather than answering this as a philosophical or theological question by a seminary student, I probably should have attempted to find out why the child was asking in order to better address the question. From the child's perspective, rather than my own. My expectations were one thing. The child with whom I was speaking had different ones. When the two clashed together, neither one of us communicated very clearly. There's a sense in which that child's expectations were more on point than any of my own. While I do expect God to show up and become revealed at least on special occasions. I don't expect it in quite as direct a fashion as a 3-year-old. I cloud a lot of my expectations in theological language when perhaps I should be looking a bit more directly to see God in the world all around me, as present as the next person I encounter or to whom I speak. When I allow God's appearing to be trapped within the walls of my expectations, like as not, I'm missing God right in front of me. Jacob was not looking for Yahweh. Jacob was not expecting Yahweh to show up on this journey of his. He had been sent away from home by his father to find a wife for himself from among his mother's kinfolk. He seems to have set out on his own, unlike Eleazar making a similar trip with a retinue surrounding him. While that is probably not at all likely, we still have no indication in the text to picture it otherwise. Away from home, away from his known surroundings, this homebody finds himself roughing it out where he must seek comfort and shelter in a rock fort of his own making. He has an encounter with Yahweh through a dream. Yet even that communication reveals that Yahweh is not actually his God. This is the God of Abraham that appears to him. Looking a bit further into the account, we find that Jacob makes a commitment of sorts to Yahweh, and yet it is conditional. If Yahweh cares for him on this journey, if Yahweh grants protection and prosperity, then Jacob would worship and serve Yahweh upon his return. This is not the talk of someone with a developed trust in Yahweh. This is not an adherent to Yahwism who responds to Yahweh's self-revelation. This is rather the response of one who not only was not looking for Yahweh, but neither was he involved in practicing his grandfather's faith. Not only are we far from any sanctuary or any defined holy place, our protagonist here is no adherent who is looking to validate any claim about Yahweh in the first place. This is Jacob, the trickster, supplanter, the heel grabber. This is the one who was born at odds with his twin brother and giving little to no thought to seeking or finding God along his journey. Tellingly, when Jacob awakens from this revelatory dream, he is afraid. His surprise upon this encounter with Yahweh has led him to a crossroads of uncertainty. Yahweh has reaffirmed that old promise to Jacob's grandfather, indicating that it would be fulfilled through Jacob's progeny. The Hebrew term here is a rather poetic visual of sowing seed throughout the land. His seed, the children yet to be born to him, would cover the land all around him as the plants grown from broadcasting seed in a field prepared to receive them. Jacob is afraid. He was unprepared to meet up with this God of Abraham. He was not seeking any such encounter. He had done nothing to initiate a meeting with Yahweh. He was just minding his own business as he followed his father's instructions regarding taking a wife from extended family back in his mother's homeland. Yahweh's word was a positive message to him. It was, however, something he did not expect. He was taken by surprise. He felt like he had unwittingly laid down at a sacred site which was a portal to the heavens, the gate to the stairway of God's. He does what so many others have done before and since. He marks the site as though this very ground were as sacred as the one he encountered. He erects a pillar of stones, pours oil upon them to set them as marking a holy place. He calls the place Bethel, house of God. Rather than focusing on the encounter with Yahweh and Yahweh's message to him, he transfers whatever reverence he has for the physical place of that encounter. It's as though he were saying, if you want to find Yahweh, this is the place where Yahweh has shown up before. This is where you need to be. This is where you should seek audience with God. Jacob had just taken the dream he had experienced and reinterpreted it in very concrete terms. Much like that 3-year-old child asking about God's presence. Rather than understanding that God had come to find him where he was, Jacob was thinking in terms of having stumbled upon a holy place where God should be expected to be found. This was not a well-considered or thought-out set of actions. This is how a fearful man responded upon this unexpected encounter with the God of his fathers. God did not reveal God's self to Jacob because Jacob chanced to come upon and make his camp for the night at some holy place. Wherever Jacob had ended up that night, God had determined to seek Jacob out, to affirm the promise given to Abraham, and it's being passed down through this unworthy heel grabber. It was not the place that mattered. It was the relationship that mattered to God. It was the person whom God was seeking. It was Jacob's seed, Jacob's need, that brought Yahweh to seek him out, to encourage and strengthen him for the journey and conflict that lay ahead. This is still the way God responds to us and shows up today. It's not because we have come to a special holy location. It's not because we have stood in a geographic place where another previously experienced God. It's not because of some success or heroic deed that we have accomplished. Much more is at the point of our need or the need of others. See, God was present in that conversation I had with that 3-year-old. It wasn't about location. It wasn't about picking God out among the foliage. It was in that interaction where God was making God's self known to me through the preschooler, and to that preschooler through me. The God we serve is personal. God meets us at the point of our need. That is not always how we expect it. Can we open ourselves to finding and even seeking God in our interactions in those out-of-the-way places? After all, wherever we chance to go,